I never knew my parents' hurtful words would spark a life-changing revenge. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick, heavy with tension. My heart raced. I stood there, trembling, as my mother's sharp voice cut through the silence like a knife. "You'll never be anything, just like your father," she yelled. Each word felt like a lash on my skin. I could taste the bitterness of tears forming in my throat. My father's silence echoed louder than any shout. His disappointed gaze burned into me. I was so small, so desperate for their love. But instead, their words clawed through my spirit, carving out pieces of me I couldn't afford to lose. In that moment, I felt that I was not just a disappointment, I was invisible, a ghost wandering through their lives, destined to fade into nothingness. That I spent hours in my room, the walls closing in around me. I could hear my parents fighting, their desperate voices crackling like static on an old radio, drowning out my thoughts. I was trapped. My only solace came from the forgotten box under my bed, filled with my scribbled dreams and secrets. Every time I opened it, I felt a flicker of hope. I imagined a future far away from this pain. That my best friend Mia tried to help. She had always been my anchor, with her bubbly laughter and unshakable optimism. She told me I could rise above their words. But how? Her reassuring hugs felt like armor, yet just outside my window, my reality loomed. Each day, I woke up to the same nightmare. The same hurt. One rainy afternoon, after another fight shattered our home, I decided I was done being the punching bag. My parents couldn't see me, but I could see them, one silent and passive, the other a tyrant. I plotted, fueled by anger and desperation. What would happen if they felt the same emptiness I did? A plan took shape in my mind, dark and intoxicating. I began to collect secrets, pieces of their lives I wasn't supposed to know. Late-night conversations I eavesdropped on. My father's hidden debts, my mother's risky investments. I couldn't believe how easily I stumbled upon their vulnerabilities. Each discovery set my heart racing, igniting a fire deep within me. Revenge was my new anthem. That I felt powerful for the first time, giddy with possibility. But as the storm in my mind began brewing, a sinking feeling crawled into my chest. Was I about to become the villain in my own story? Could the cycle of pain and revenge be broken? Heart pounding, I stared at my reflection. The girl in the mirror was both warrior and wounded. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the clouds heavy with rain continued to blanket the sky, I sat on my bed, heart racing, mind swirling. The chilling voice of my mother replayed in my head, reminding me of every inadequacy that had been thrown at me, a constant reminder of their disdain. But alongside that weighty despair was something a flicker of determination. I could turn the table. But at what cost? The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within. I could feel the coldness creeping into my bones as I stared out the window, my thoughts forming dark clouds that swirled with a disturbing intensity. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. Revenge filled me with a sense of purpose, yet an uncomfortable voice from deep inside me whispered warnings. The doubts began to pile up like the raindrops racing each other down the windowpane. Would this truly bring me the satisfaction I yearned for, or would it simply deepen my already profound loneliness? Just as I felt my resolve weakening, a quiet knock interrupted my thoughts. It was Mia, peeking her head in, her face a mix of concern and warmth. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, stepping into my sanctuary. There was a softness in her voice that pierced the armor I had draped around myself. The gentle sincerity in her eyes reminded me of a life I longed for, one filled with love and acceptance rather than bitterness and vengeance. That I shook my head, unable to articulate the maelstrom inside. Instead, I leaned against the window frame, watching as raindrops raced each other down the glass. I don't know how to stop feeling this way, Mia. It's like they're suffocating me with every word, every glance, and I want to make it stop. That moment, she crossed the room to sit beside me, her presence both grounding and soothing. I get it. But what if you use that pain for something good? Sometimes, the best way to fight back is to rise up, not to tear others down. Her words hit me like a breath of fresh air, yet a part of me resisted. The revenge that loomed so large in my thoughts fought desperately against this budding hope she offered. As I turned to look at her, my heart grappled with contrasting emotions. Wouldn't it be easier to lash out? To unleash the storm brewing inside me rather than contain it? It felt powerful, intoxicating even, but I was teetering on the edge of something I couldn't quite grasp. "I'll go with you tomorrow," Mia continued, as if sensing my internal struggle. "We can visit that art exhibit we wanted to see. Remember? It might be just what you need, a little escape, a chance to breathe." The offer sent a spark of relief through me. The thought of immersing myself in creativity, even for a moment, felt like a lifeline thrown into stormy waters. My heart lifted slightly. "Okay. Let's do it." Even as the conversation shifted toward bright colors and the beauty of skilled hands crafting masterpieces, a nagging sensation of dread clung to my psyche. The thought of facing my parents again, feeling their contempt, loomed over any glimmer of hope she so generously tried to plant. The next day dawned gloomy and gray, but I was determined not to allow my environment to dictate my mood. Mia and I made our way to the gallery, the scent of damp earth mingling with the impending freshness of spring in the air. Each step felt like a promise, a tiny rebellion against my heavy reality. As we entered the gallery, the colors washed over me like a wave, vibrant hues dancing in chaotic harmony, promising stories and whispers of life beyond my bruised existence. I felt the warmth of Mia's hand in mine, grounding me amidst the whirlpool of emotions. But as I wandered through the exhibits, I caught sight of a painting that stopped me in my tracks. It was a stormy sea, dark and furious, with a single ship battling against the raging waves. I couldn't look away. The turmoil within me was mirrored perfectly in the canvas, the internal struggle, the fight against the tempest of pain, the longing for a safe harbor. Suddenly, tears brimmed in my eyes, uninvited and fierce. "Mia," I whispered, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over me. She rushed to my side, understanding in her eyes as she squeezed my hand tighter. "What if they never see me? What if I'm always just a ghost to them?" Her silence was filled with empathy, the kind that felt like a cocoon. "You're not a ghost," she assured me softly. "You're fighting for your light. That's what matters." Just as she spoke those life-affirming words, my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of the moment. The message was from my father. "We need to talk. Now." Panic surged through me like icy water, pushing back all the hope and warmth Mia had brought. He was in the middle of a fight with my mother, and this couldn't mean anything good. "We should go," I whispered, feeling the storm raging both inside and outside of me. But as I looked into Mia's eyes, I realized that I was at a crossroads. Would I go back to the comfort of revenge, or could I push through the pain towards something braver, something that would allow me to reclaim my existence, not just for them, but for myself? Mia nodded as we stepped out of the gallery. But as I walked away, the words of my father buzzed ominously in my ear, the storm still looming in the distance, waiting to break. I took a deep breath, knowing the choice I had to face would challenge everything I'd begun to understand. Would I break the cycle, or plunge further into the dark depths of a family hurt by their own wounds? The battle within me raged on, and the next chapter of my life awaited, clipping its wings with every heartbeat. The air crackled with tension as I stepped back into the world where my parents wielded their words like swords. The pulsating ache in my chest reminded me of everything I was trying to escape, but now I was headed directly toward it. The colors of the art gallery faded into the dullness of reality, and as I walked, each step felt heavier with the weight of my decision looming like the storm clouds gathering outside. Mia walked beside me, her presence still a flicker of warmth, yet I could tell she sensed the shift in my mood. She squeezed my hand a little tighter, as if with that small gesture, she could lighten my load. I wanted to believe that would work. I truly did. Arriving home was like stepping into a prison, the air thick with a dread I had learned to anticipate. The living room was quiet, an eerie calm before the inevitable emotional storm. I felt the heavy gaze of my mother from across the room. Her presence loomed like a shadow, a dark reminder of the battle we had yet to face. My father's silence was more ominous than words. It curled around us, waiting to unleash its fury. "Mia, maybe you should wait outside," I said, suddenly feeling selfish for dragging her into this. "No way," she replied firmly, standing her ground. "I'm not leaving you alone with them." Her voice carried a strength that momentarily banished my hesitation, and with that shared resolve, we walked inside together. "Where have you been?" My mother's voice sliced through the silence, frigid as ever. "You know you should have been here to help with." My father interrupted, his tone calm but simmering beneath the surface. "That's enough. We need to talk about your future." His gaze was piercing, and I felt the room shrink around me. I was being pulled into their storm, the very storm I had sought to escape. "That I don't want to talk about my future," I replied defiantly, surprising even myself. The words flew out before I had a chance to reconsider. The tension in the air shifted. Mia's fingers intertwined with mine, providing a source of strength I never knew I could have. "Of course you don't," my mother scoffed. "You're content to wallow in your art while your future crumbles around you." Fury bubbled inside me like magma, almost urging me to lash out. Yet, my resolve didn't break. It took form like a phoenix rising from ashes. "Maybe if you actually recognized my talents, you would understand why I'm pursuing art, Bart. You think you'll make a living off enough." My father's booming voice cut through the moment. "This isn't just about art or future jobs. This is about responsibility. You're letting your mother down." His words felt like nails through my heart, and I held back the tremor in my voice. "I'm not letting anyone down. I'm trying to find myself." The silence that followed was deafening, each tick of the clock feeling like a countdown towards something I couldn't put into words, a dynamic that wove through our family like a poisonous vine. Mia attempted to intervene. "Can't you see that she's struggling? Putting her down won't help," but my mother's contempt was unshakable. "Struggling? You're only being dramatic," she shot back, glaring at Mia. "What makes you think you can come here and offer your opinions? You're not part of this family." I felt a surge of anger at how quickly my mother dismissed Mia. Anger morphed into action, my voice breaking at the seams. "Mia is more of a family to me than you'll ever understand. You locked me out, trapped in a cage of your expectations, and now you want to control everything about me. But I won't let you." The silence in the room shifted once more, a jarring moment that felt like the eye of a storm, tense, expectant. My mother's face drained of color, and I caught the briefest flicker of confusion in my father's eyes. I had never seen them like this, unmoored from their steadiness. For a moment, I grasped the possibility of breaking free from their constant machinations, but then my father stepped forward, his assertiveness returning like thunder, an uncomfortable mix of disappointment and disbelief etched into every feature. "You need to get your act together. There's more to life than following whims. We're not always going to be here," my mother added, venom dripping from her words. "One day, you'll realize you could have had everything if only you had listened." A cold dread filled me as her remarks pierced through the ambiguity of our situation, turning the focus to an even greater threat, the very notion they could simply leave. Would their absence mean their weapons would fall silent, or would I be left to battle my demons alone? That thought struck me like a lightning bolt. All my life, I had wanted them to see me, to believe in me. But perhaps I had never truly seen them. Had they, too, been adrift, entrapped in their own storm, casting shadows that darkened the spaces of our lives? The realization hung in the air, slowly engulfing the anger I'd felt just moments before. I was fighting for my identity, but what were they fighting for? My gaze fell back to Mia, and I could tell she was grappling with her own emotions, her hands still clutching mine, grounding me amidst the chaos. "Fine," I said softly, but with a newfound strength. "If I'm trapped in this cycle, then so are you. I'll break free, but not by succumbing to your expectations." The door swung open just then, and with it, a familiar face stepped through, the very last person I expected to see, my oldest brother, Alex. The room fell silent. Hope and fear intertwined. I felt a mixture of relief and dread wash over me at his unexpected arrival. Would he be a source of support, Or just another reminder of our family's fractures? As he stepped further in, his expression darkened, confused. What's going on? Before I could answer, the weight of secrets and pain escalated, hovering in the air like static before a storm. The silence stretched, a taut string ready to snap at any moment. Alex's presence hadn't just changed the atmosphere, it ignited an undercurrent of fear and hope. Here was someone who had lived through the storm, someone who might understand the ceaseless struggle within these walls. But I also had no idea what he would bring with him. Mia, Alex said, his voice softer, calming. You shouldn't be here. His gaze flicked between her and my parents, catching the tension that throbbed in the room. You should have warned us you were coming back, my mother bit out, turning the heat of our confrontation toward him. Don't you have better things to do with your life? I just got back, Mom. Maybe I wanted to see my sister, Alex replied, deflecting the bile in her voice with an easy defiance. Don't act like you care, she shot back, her tone unforgiving. You left. You didn't really care. Do you hear yourself? Alex's voice rose, startled by her accusation. I left because I couldn't take the suffocating weight of these expectations. I thought maybe he looked at me, uncertainty pooling in his eyes. Maybe I could give her courage to break free. That I felt Mia's grip tighten around my hand, as though she were bracing for the impact of what could come next. My heart raced. Did Alex know the depths of our reality? Courage? You mean to say you're encouraging her to run away from her responsibilities? My mother was relentless. No, I interjected, emotions surging through me like a tidal wave. We're talking about being true to ourselves. Something none of us have learned how to do. The eruption of feelings was exhilarating and terrifying. It felt as though all the unspoken words that had bound us for so long were now rocketing toward the surface, threatening to unleash the very chaos we'd tried to contain. Alex, I said, the tremor in my voice betraying my attempt at composure. I want to pursue art. I want to explore who I really am. But it feels impossible with you all constantly pushing me toward stuff I don't want. I wanted that for you too, he replied, his eyes sparkling with a mix of pride and sadness. But it's not just about that. Mom's scared. She's scared of what? I pressed. That she'll lose control over me? I'm not a puppet. His sudden vulnerability hung charged in the air. We were all scared. But you are strong. You're so much stronger than what you give yourself credit for. You've been spinning in circles, caught up in their whirlwind. My heart leaped at those words. For so long, I felt like I was lost in their storm, barely holding the remnants of my own identity. Yet, here was Alex, exposing the raw truth that I needed to hear. It's only a cycle if you let it be, he added softly. And you don't have to do this alone. You have Mia. You have me now. Tears brimmed in my eyes as I turned to Mia, her gentle smile providing an anchor in this swirling tempest of raw emotions. For the first time in what felt like eons, I found the courage to express my truth, though fervent fear wrapped around me like chains. My father sighed, the weariness etched into his features deepening. You're right, Alex. Maybe we have been too controlling, too focused on what we think she should be. But we're just trying to protect her. Protect me, I echoed, incredulous. Is that what you call strangling my dreams? The only thing I'm really afraid of is being just another shadow passing through your expectations and never being seen at all. The tears slipped down my cheeks, defiant and free. At least now, the truth poured into the open. Perhaps I could be seen. Those words hung there, mismatched and waiting. Alex stepped toward me, slowly, carefully, as though he were trying to bridge the emotional chasm that separated me from our family. You need to stand up for yourself, and if that means making them uncomfortable, then so be it. Just then, Mia stepped forward, planting herself firmly at my side. And if that means having to reshuffle your family roles to allow for space to breathe, then do it. You deserve to explore your passions without feeling guilty for wanting something different. Tension gnawed at the edges of the room once again, but I could feel resolve building within me. The warmth of their support made me feel invincible, and even if my parents struggled to see my worth now, maybe there was hope for them yet. But before I could gather the next round of courage to continue, Alex's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced down, his brows knitting together at the message that flickered on the screen. Instantly, Tension flooded the room anew. "I have to take this," he murmured, stepping away to read it. I caught glimpses of his face contorting into confusion and disbelief. "What's going on?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. Alex turned to me, his gaze filled with an ominous weight. "It's about Kyle," he said, "my other brother whom I hadn't spoken to in years. He's in trouble," and just like that, the ground beneath me shifted again, reality turning once more into an unpredictable storm. The hurtful words of my parents and the fear of my own identity faded into the background, eclipsed by the realization that perhaps familial bonds, even those frayed beyond recognition, could still hold power over our destinies. As before, I felt that old dread creeping back into my chest. Would Kyle's troubles pull us apart even further, or would this be a catalyst to unite us in ways I never imagined? I stood frozen as Alex's expression morphed from confusion to something resembling fear. My heart raced, propelled by a rush of uncertainty. "What do you mean, trouble?" I asked, my voice a whisper barely punctuated by the sound of my pulse thrumming in my ears. "Mia," Alex addressed her with urgency, "stay here. I need to take this outside." He glanced at my parents, who were now eyeing him with a mix of paranoia and concern, as if they sensed a familial fracture deeper than any of us understood. Reluctantly, I watched as he stepped out, leaving the tension to swell like a balloon ready to burst. The air in the room felt thick. I glanced at Mia, who, sensing my turmoil, grabbed my hand once more. Her warmth radiated a flicker of comfort amidst the chaos, her eyes searching mine with unspoken questions. What if Alex is right? What if this is an opportunity, the catalyst we need? I murmured, feeling my words intertwine with nervous hope rather than grounded certainty that he could be bringing back your brother. "That could be a good thing, right?" Mia offered, though even in her words, I could sense the hesitation that knotted our collective anxiety, but somewhere deep within me, a gnawing thought festered. What if Kyle brought with him more complications than resolutions? The weight of my family's history surrounded us like a shadowy fog, one that had twisted and distorted over years of silence and rage. Mom broke the silence first, her voice fragile yet determined. "This family," she gestured nervously between us, "we've had too many years of grief already." "We thought," she faltered, leaning into my father for support, "we thought Kyle would find his way home, that he'd be okay." Why father ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "We never should have shut him out, but you know how difficult he was. We didn't know how else to handle it." His eyes bore into mine, laden with guilt. "We thought distance might protect you both from his turmoil." Is that what you call it? Protection? I heard my voice rise again, unbidden. "Didn't you think that maybe isolating him wasn't helping? Did you ever consider that pulling away could break something that couldn't be mended? You don't understand." My mother's tone sharpened, tinged with desperation. "You don't know how far gone Kyle is. The things he's done. I didn't want you to witness the kind of person he became." That revelation hung between us, heavy and unwelcome. I could feel Mia stiffen beside me, her own grief becoming intertwined with mine as we both tried to navigate the labyrinth of decisions that had led to our frayed family ties. "Maybe meeting Kyle again will force us to confront what's been broken in this family," Mia whispered, her voice thick with empathetic understanding. "If there's any hope left, it's better than pretending everything is fine." Suddenly, Alex reappeared, ashen and unsettled, as though he'd been swallowed by some unseen storm. "Kyle's in serious trouble," he said, voice strained. "He needs us. And it's bad enough that he might not come back." "What do you mean?" I whispered, dread washing over me in frigid waves. "He's involved with some dangerous people," Alex confessed, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying to erase the weight of the reality he just returned from. "And if we don't help him, who knows what could happen?" My stomach churned. The idea of walking into the fire of Kyle's recklessness felt like diving headfirst into peril, yet the thought of abandoning him left me with a sharp ache in my chest. It directly confronted everything I had been grappling with. Was I ready to embrace family ties built on pain, or would I choose to preserve my newfound right to freedom? "Mia, I don't know if I can," I began, the justification for my desires suddenly feeling fragile in the face of my brother's potential crisis. "Hey," she squeezed my hand firmly, grounding. "You're not alone in this. What's important is how we face it. Strength in numbers, right?" Alex's eyes shone with unshed tears, holding a reflection of hope, fear, and something else, regret. "We might not be able to change the past. But we have a chance to fight for him now. You can't leave your brother to drown in this mess. That a choice lay before me, one drenched in uncertainty and laced with the haunting truth that family could cut deeper than any blade. Just when I thought I was grasping my freedom, a tether pulled taut around my throat, reminding me of the bonds that wouldn't loosen, no matter how far I tried to run. "Did I want to help him?" I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of resolve and dread. "But what if his darkness swallows us whole?" Alex smiled, a small flicker of warmth igniting in the densely packed despair. "Then we fight it together, Mia. Together, like we always should have." Before I could react, an unsettling noise erupted outside. Shouted voices and the sound of a scuffle broke through the door, ricocheting through the house. The calm resolve I'd briefly grasped shattered into shards of fear. "Something's happening," Alex said, his eyes wide with alarm. He sprang toward the door, and in that split second, I knew we were teetering on the edge. Everything was about to change, and not for the better. With my heart in my throat, I ran after him, knowing that the answer to our turmoil might lie in the shadows cast by our pasts, ready to reel us in once more. As we burst outside into the night, we were left with one daunting truth. We were a family hanging on by the threads of unresolved love and unshakable ties, faced with a reckoning that could destroy us or finally bring us together. No matter the outcome, I understood that nothing could prepare me for what awaited us beyond those doors. The storm was far from over, and the real battle was just beginning. The night air was charged with chaos as we stepped outside, and my heart clashed against the rhythm of frantic footsteps and raised voices. The scene unfolding before us was a jarring cacophony, a swirl of blurred figures grappling in the pale glow of a streetlight. The familiar shapes emerged from the shadows, and within the melee, I recognized Kyle. He was cornered by two men, their faces obscured by hooded jackets, bared teeth visible in the harsh light. My chest tightened, a visceral ache spreading like wildfire through my limbs. An anguished shout escaped me. "Kyle!" I moved instinctively, pushing past Alex and Mia, driven by an insatiable pull of loyalty that surpassed my fear. "No." Alex called, his voice a mix of urgency and restraining panic, but it felt like a distant echo as I thrust myself into the melee. The world warped around me, focusing solely on the brother I had spent a lifetime loathing and longing for. Kyle's eyes met mine, a swirl of recognition and something dark. A plea, perhaps? A hint of desperation tinged with that reckless spark that had always danced within him. "Get back!" he shouted, but a surge of adrenaline masked my instincts as I maneuvered through the scuffle. One of the men lunged, hands grappling for Kyle, and I didn't think. I simply acted. I jumped forward, throwing my weight into the fray, a raw instinct fueled by a lifetime of buried attachment. Kyle turned, his eyes widening in surprise, and I felt the weight of his hesitation crash against the resolve I wished I could project. "Why are you here?" "Because you're my brother," I yelled back, my voice fierce against the chaos. Just then, one of the men delivered a jab to Kyle's jaw, and my stomach twisted violently as I winced at the sight. Rage ignited within me, igniting a fire fueled by all those years of longing to be part of his world. With a cry echoing between us, I grabbed the nearest object, a broken branch from the ground, and swung it wildly, my small body a conduit of stolen bravery. "Get away from him!" I yelled, my defiance surprising even myself. The branch cracked against the shoulder of the attacker, sending him stumbling back, but it only added fuel to the fire. The other man retaliated, charging toward me. "Maya! Get out of here!" Alex's voice broke through the noise, but the world was bending into shades of urgency that didn't leave me room for retreat. The air was thick with panic, and just as fear closed in, Mia acted. With a stunning clarity, she leaped into the fray beside me, her small stature belied by the determination in her eyes. "You're not doing this alone," she cried out, swinging her own fists like they held the weight of our collective hope. Suddenly, the shadows seemed to flicker. A car roared onto the scene, tires screeching against the asphalt as another figure stepped out, a man dressed sharply, his countenance surprisingly calm amid the chaos. "Enough!" he bellowed, his voice deep and commanding. The attackers hesitated, their fists drawn back, and for a fragile heartbeat, the violence stilled. "What kind of shit show is this?" the newcomer demanded, surveying the scene with an air of detachment that contrasted starkly with the turmoil surrounding us. Though confused, I felt an unexpected flicker of hope. Could this be someone from Kyle's life that might intervene? Perhaps a path to help him, to usher him from the grasp of these dangerous strangers? But before I could digest this moment, the man turned his gaze sharply on me. Get away from your brother, girl. He's in trouble beyond what you understand. His words hung in the air, laced with a sharpness that cut deeper than anticipated. Could he perceive the gnawing wounds he had on full display, the longing interwoven with the pain of complicity in Kyle's choices? What are you talking about? Kyle rumbled, his eyes darting between me and the stranger, every inch of him screaming defiance. That life of yours, those debts, these people, the man began, but Kyle's rebuttal was swift, filled with venom and desperation. I can take care of myself. Don't you dare turn this back on me. As the tension thickened like fog in the moonlight, something snapped. The men stepped back, whispers of concern for their own safety shifting the dynamics. It was enough for Alex to charge back at me, his palm gripping my arm tightly. Let's get Kyle out of here. Now. But at that moment, I saw a flicker of possibility. The stranger's presence felt different. Wait! I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. If you know him, please, he needs help. We all do. The man hesitated, confusion marring his previous confidence, caught off guard by my boldness. But before he could respond, the other attacker lunged forward again, shoving Kyle into me, and in that chaotic moment, something tore within me. I felt on the brink of losing my brother again, this time to forces I could hardly comprehend. The scent of gasoline clung to the air, heavy, toxic. My mind raced, fragments of our past intertwining like tendrils of smoke, laughter, fights, promises unkept, weight of our shared burdens collapsing around me. Please, I begged, voice thin, we can't lose him again. The stranger's eyes flickered with hesitation, the shifting allegiances palpable in the charged atmosphere. You can't protect him from everything, he murmured, his voice heavy with a truth I longed to deny. In that moment, the tension erupted in renewed chaos, and the scuffle shifted yet again, my heart pounding as I realized how precarious this situation truly was. The world was spiraling, choices collapsing into a whirlwind of desperation, and my fear clouded the reality of our fight. Get him out of here! I screamed again, yearning for a connection that felt just beyond reach, a distant echo of family united against the storm. I was standing on the knife's edge, emotions churning, and I had no way of knowing whether the next moment would pull us together or tear us apart forever. As the adrenaline coursed through my veins, I realized that the struggle wasn't just for Kyle's life but for the existence of hope within our fractured family. But just as I thought we might stand a chance to confront our demons, a sudden gunshot rang out through the night, a jarring reminder that the stakes were higher than we ever anticipated. Our eyes widened as I felt the ground shift beneath us, realization flooding through me that we hadn't just unleashed chaos. We had walked headfirst into a merciless vortex, a maelstrom of decisions we might never unravel. The gunshot reverberated through the night like the toll of a dark bell, punctuating the chaos with a finality that made the air around us feel colder, sharper. Time stretched, and in that fragile moment, everything blurred. The ringing in my ears overtook the shouts, the bodies jostling against one another faded into vague silhouettes. I only saw Kyle and the fear painted across his face. Maya. He yelled, his voice a mix of anger and concern as he pushed himself toward me, blocking me from the onlookers. Get behind me, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, paralyzed by a sudden realization that the stakes were far worse than I had imagined. The fear, that unyielding vice squeezing around my chest, merged with a tempest of anger and guilt. I felt the warmth of familiarity, the fiery connection that had always burned hot between us, but mingling with it was the creeping dread of how long we had allowed ourselves to be separated, trapped in our stubbornness. Kyle, we have to go. Alex's voice cut through the haze. He sounded frantic, but his sense of urgency only made my heart race faster. I could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the same emotions reflected in mine. The stranger, who had previously held an almost aloof calm, took rapid steps forward. We don't have the luxury of choosing how to fight this, he barked, his tone sharp. Those men don't just want Kyle, they want revenge for debts he hasn't even mentioned. We're in deep waters. What do you mean? I interjected, feeling the rising tide of confusion crashing against my resolve. What debts? What have you gotten him into? Before he could answer, the attackers regained their composure. One of them, blood trickling from an injury I had inflicted, snarled, "You think this ends here? You think you can hide from your past forever, Kyle? Kyle stiffened, his expression darkening. I'm not running from anything, he said softly, though his voice trembled with uncertainty. It was then that I noticed the depth of fear reflected in Kyle's eyes. She was terrified. For us, for what this all meant. A second gunshot rang out, the sound closer than the last. It hit with a visceral force, and for a moment, time seemed to suspend again, leaving only the screech of tires and the wail of sirens growing louder in the distance. The air was heavy with the promise of chaos unraveling, and I felt the universe righting itself with such ferocity that I could barely breathe. It ripped me from my thoughts, grounding me back into this night of unrealized promises. Run! Kyle shouted, and we surged into motion as the urgency propelled us forward. Alex, Mia, Kyle, and I, four fragile lifelines tangled together amidst the chaos. The stranger seemed to fade behind us as we dashed down the street, adrenaline driving every desperate step. We didn't look back, and yet every breath felt weighted with the what-ifs, unresolved threads of anger, disappointment, and the innate yearning for brotherhood that lingered too long over years of separation. Kyle's presence beside me felt both comforting and infuriating. I wanted him to realize the chasm had carved, needed him to understand that I hadn't just cared for him ineffectively. I wanted to help him climb back to the surface, to free him from whatever darkness held him captive. We ducked into an alleyway, the cold concrete biting against our bare skin. It felt both familiar and foreign, rife with memories of laughter turned to echoes of the past, childhood whispers shared in the dark corners of our family home where secrets had tethered us together long before they had splintered us apart. What do we do now? Mia asked, her small frame trembling as she pressed close to Alex. I could see Kyle grappling with his own thoughts, his brow furrowed deeply. We can't keep running, he said, the weight of his voice heavy with weariness. I need to confront them. I need to make things right. Make things right? I echoed, incredulity spilling into my words. Do you even understand what that means? You're in way over your head, Kyle. The agony of past choices hung in the air between us. Each accusation felt like another blade, and my heart hammered with the intensity of emotions bubbling to the surface. I leaned closer, desperation clawing at my throat. We don't have to do this alone. You can lean on us. Since when have you been the one to support me? His voice cracked, the edge of defensiveness growing sharper. You don't understand what I'm involved in. You have no idea what these people are capable of. I might not know everything, I said quietly, the vulnerability sinking in. But I do know you're my brother. And I'm not going to stand aside when I have a chance to help you. Before he could respond, a shadow flickered at the edge of the Aaliyah silhouette, growing more defined with every agonizing second. I felt my heart drop as our eyes locked with those of the approaching figure. It was the stranger again, stepping forward with an intensity that shattered our fragile moment of hope. Time is running out, he warned, his voice low and urgent. If you truly want to protect him, you need to listen to me. And you need to act fast. I opened my mouth, ready to question him again, to demand clarity, when an entirely new thought gripped the pit of my stomach, a chance realization that the stranger might know better than any of us. The stakes, once again, were climbing rapidly and burying us deeper into the dark. Who are you? I pressed, but the gravity of the moment shifted abruptly as Kyle's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, and his eyes widened in recognition. He took a step back, an expression mingled with horror and inevitability, the blood draining from his face. They found me, didn't they? He whispered, realization dawning as the far-off echoes of sirens grew ever closer. Before I could question further, despair surged within me as the shadows cast by the streetlight grew longer, looming as the threat of the past collided with the present. The night was no longer just a backdrop to our chaos, it was morphing into an unforgiving arena, and the truth of where we stood became terrifyingly clear. As we braced ourselves, certainty trickled away, and I felt the familiar knot of fear and determination intertwine in my heart. Would Kyle fight this battle? Or were we all mere pawns spiraling toward a fate from which we might never escape? The sirens wailed like ghosts of consequences creeping into our realism, a stark reminder that whatever came next, the night was far from over, and the cliff of uncertainty loomed ever closer. The alley felt like a prison, the walls closing in as whispers and threats lurked in the shadows. My heart raced, and unease layered itself thick over the night's chaos. The piercing wails of sirens echoed ominously, a sinister reminder of the urgency that hung over us, suffocating any flicker of hope. "Kyle, we need to leave now," I urged, my voice trembling as the gravity of the situation anchored us in place. I could see the turmoil clashing within him, fear battling against the bravado he tried to maintain. He was a tempest caught between wanting to reclaim control and knowing he had spiraled too far down a dark path. That he shifted his gaze, searching my eyes for something, clarity, perhaps, or an unwavering belief that we could defy the odds stacked against us. My heart ached for him, for the pieces of our fractured history that mingled with the weight of current dangers. "That we can find another way," I insisted, the desperation spilling from my heart like a torrent. "You don't have to face them alone." "You never did. They won't stop until they get what they want," he replied, each word laced with a certainty that felt like a cold knife against our entwined fates. "They'll go through you, through Mia, through Alex." "I can't let that happen." With every syllable, I felt my resolve shake, the strands holding me steady fraying at the edges. "You don't have to protect us at the cost of your own safety." "That's not the answer. We can find a way to fight back together, Kyle." Alex interjected, the urgency in his voice igniting a spark of rebellion within me. "Listen to us. You matter too much to just walk into the lion's den." There was a pause, a fragile silence punctuated only by the desperate sounds of chaos preparing to engulf us. Kyle's eyes softened for just a moment, but then they hardened, like thickening ice, wrapping him in self-imposed solitude. "I made my choices," he said, his tone low and resolute. "And now it's up to me to deal with the consequences." As he spoke, the stranger's presence loomed again. "You'll be running from those consequences forever if you don't take your stand now. Each moment wasted draws them closer." Frustration churned in my chest. "You keep saying that, but what do you know that we don't?" I took a step forward, challenging him silently to divulge whatever knowledge burdened his demeanor. "In this life, Kyle," he replied, his voice dropping deeper, almost intimate, "debt is a currency, whether you embraced it or not. The people chasing you will make sure debts get repaid one way or another." I caught Kyle's eyes flicker a fleeting glimpse of uncertainty and my heart seized. "You keep talking about debt. Is it them you owe, or someone else? What kind of darkness have you been hiding?" His silence felt as terrible as the impending storm. The moment stretched like a taut line, and I could feel the weight of secrets about to unravel. Before Kyle could respond, something shifted in the shadows across the street. A figure emerged from the depths of night, their movements fluid and calculated, a striking contrast against the chaos unfolding behind them. "Derek," Kyle whispered, recognition breaking across his features. "Looks like you've finally decided to show up," the newcomer said, a sardonic smirk gracing his lips. The malice in his tone sent shivers rippling down my spine. My gaze flitted to Kyle, searching for answers in his expression. "Stay back," Kyle commanded, stepping forward as if to shield me, to make a stand. "Or what?" Derek's lips curled into a predatory smile. "You'll fight for a cause that was never yours to begin with?" Fear seeped through the cracks of Kyle's bravado, and I could see his resolve wavering. "You don't understand the depths of this," Derek continued, relishing the discomfort he had ignited. "Let's talk, Kyle. One last chance to settle this or watch those you love suffer the fallout." Panic gripped my chest as the tendrils of entrapment encircled us tighter. I leaned against Kyle, steadying myself, knitting the threads of courage that had begun to fray. "Don't listen to him. This is nothing but a trap," but Kyle's gaze remained locked onto Derek, a mixture of trepidation and unbidden memories swirling behind his eyes. "What do you want?" Derek seemed to flourish in his power, his smile devoid of warmth. "It's simple, really. You owe me a debt, and I want payment. Your loyalty, and your silence. If you want to protect your little family here, you'll deny any lingering ties to the past." "No," I blurted out, the word feeling too defiant for the tremor in my voice. "You can't just." But my protests hung in the air, suspended by Kyle's silence. The gravity of the decision loomed larger than ever, heavier than before. I understood then that he was caught not just in the web of fear and obligation but also in the complex knots of his choices, those choices where guilt and duty intersected. Kyle's expression darkened as he glanced at me, his defensive armor cracking just enough to seep through vulnerability and emotional space that had been devoid for far too long. I can't lose you. I want, and then the impossible happened. A shiver ran through him, a flicker of self-awareness igniting the darkness he had lived under for too long. For the first time, I could see him grasping at the tendrils of hope, but the flicker was tenuous. At the mercy of Derek's malevolent grin, the sirens shrieked louder, and without warning, the overwhelming sensations of chaos clung tightly around us. Kyle was at the precipice of a life-altering decision, and he stood there frozen, teetering between the promise of relief and an unavoidable plunge back into the abyss. As our worlds converged in an almost cinematic moment, I realized that it had never just been about Kyle, but about all of us, fate and ties woven together against the backdrop of mistrust, sacrifice, and the raw ache of inadequacy. The shadows were closing in, and I felt the air crackle with electricity as Kyle turned to Derek, that dangerous fork in the road now stretching infinitely before us. The question lingered, heavy and uncertain in the silence. Would he choose to sever the ties of the past or face the consequences of unspoken love? The darkness held its breath, and so did I. The ground beneath us felt shaky, as if the very fabric of our reality was coming undone under the weight of Derek's predatory gaze. I could hear the chaos across the street, the distant wails of sirens and the echo of hurried footsteps merging into a cacophony of impending doom. My heart raced, unsure if it was driven by fear or the thrumming hope that maybe, just maybe, Kyle would take the leap into the unknown and choose us over the shackles of his past. Kyle, please. My voice trembled, almost breaking. This isn't just your fight anymore. It's ours. We're in this together. Each word carried my deep-seated desires and fears, clinging together like rescued ships in a storm. Derek's smirk broadened, licking his lips as though he could savor our entrapment. How touching, he sneered. But love won't save you from the reality of this world. Kyle has debts to pay, and love can't cover that. His words dripped with venom, masked under a congenial tone that unnerved me deeply. Stop it. Kyle snapped suddenly, the fire in his voice surprising us both. You think this is about you? About debts? This is my family you're toying with. For a split second, I was filled with hope. That glimmer of defiance in him ignited something within me, a shared conviction that we could overcome this together. But Derek's laughter was chilling, slicing through the moment like glass. But they will always be your weakness, Kyle. They aren't shields, they're the very shackles that bind you to your past mistakes. One wrong move, and you'll be left with nothing but ashes. The warning hung in the air, heavy like a rock in the pit of my stomach, and I pressed closer to Kyle, grounding him with my presence. Don't listen to him, I murmured softly, desperate to anchor his wavering resolve. We can break free if we stand united. Kyle met my gaze, the warmth of his fear intertwined with the remnants of hope that danced like embers between us. But then, it shifted again, his expression twisting with uncertainty as he glanced back at Derek, whose presence felt suffocating, looming like a thundercloud ready to unleash doom. I did what I had to do for survival, Kyle whispered, almost to himself, grappling with the turbulence that roared within him. I can't let them hurt you. By signing over your heart to this creature? I shot back, pointing a trembling finger at Derek. This isn't survival, Kyle, it's surrendering to the darkness. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierced through the tension, slicing the weight of despair like a knife. Kyle. Mia. It was Alex, bursting from the shadows, breathless and preoccupied with fear yet burning with the fire of determination. Beside him was Luna, her presence a stark reminder of our strength in numbers. Get away from him. Alex shouted, his eyes blazing with protective fire as he surged forward, fists clenched, ready to confront Derek head-on. You don't get to play with people's lives. Derek's demeanor shifted, momentarily startled by the sudden reinforcements. Ah, look at that, more little flies caught in the web. He stepped forward, his bravado shifting as he took in the strength radiating from our small circle. You'll regret standing against me, but it was Luna's voice that filled the air next, soothing yet fierce. If you think you can threaten us, Derek, you've clearly underestimated our resolve. Kyle has the strength of 1,000 battles within him. Kyle glanced at us, realizing for the first time that he wasn't standing alone, his face betraying the battle between fear and the warmth of solidarity wrapping around him like a protective cloak. I felt a surge of empowerment stitch us closer, a bond of shared challenges and unwavering loyalty. That's right, he finally said, his tone steadying. You don't get to dictate our fate anymore. Derek's mask slipped, revealing the rage bubbling beneath the surface. You choose them over your own survival? Over the chance to reclaim what you owe. Kyle's voice lowered, but it carried a weight of resolve that shook the ground. What I owe is not a debt, but a tether to the past that I choose to sever. I will not allow fear to rob me of my family. The air thickened with intensity, every breath felt electric with possibility, and with it came the simultaneous flicker of uncertainty. With a swift motion, Derek pulled something from his coat, a small object glinting ominously in the dim light. Are you ready for the consequences of your defiance, Kyle? Something about his posture sent a jolt of electricity through me, a premonition that this was far from over. Kyle shifted closer to me, the warmth of his body reminding me that even in the depths of darkness, we could still find light together. Before I could prepare myself for whatever came next, Derek threw the object to the ground. It shattered in a burst of blinding light, engulfing us in a maelstrom of chaos and confusion. As the world around us exploded into disarray, I felt an echo of Kyle's words ripple through the space, the realization that love carved out a path through even the deepest shadows. But just as quickly, the piercing blare of sirens wove through the air yet again, now joined by another sound, a voice screaming from somewhere within the chaos. Kyle. Mia. It's not over, they're coming for you. The ground began to tremble beneath us, a signal that something monumental was about to erupt. In that moment, everything felt suspended between the pull of the past and the promise of what lay ahead, a thin line we were all precariously balanced upon, destined to either shatter or leap forward into the unknown. And deep within that chaos, as the ground shook, I feared that the true nature of Derek's hold on Kyle was far more complex than any of us realized. The blinding light from the shattered object faded, leaving us engulfed in a surreal mix of clarity and chaos. I blinked, attempting to focus amidst the frantic movements and jagged silhouettes. Kyle looked around, his features set in determination, but I could still feel the undercurrent of panic that shook his resolve. Stay close, he shouted, scanning the space as if searching for an escape route. The sirens blared in the distance, an ominous reminder that time was slipping through our fingers like sand. Let's go, Alex urged, pulling me and Mia closer. But before we could move forward, Derek stepped into the light, a silhouette of menace and smug satisfaction. You really think you can outrun your destiny? He sneered, a cruel glint in his eyes. A sudden chill swept through me as the weight of his words sank in. Kyle's past was a storm, and we were caught in its eye. I could feel Mia's hand tighten around mine, a silent promise that we wouldn't let go, no matter how battered we might become. Enough. Kyle's voice rang out, infused with a new strength. I'm done playing your twisted games. He faced Derek, heart pounding, adrenaline electrifying the air between them. You think you have power over me? You're wrong, Derek chuckled, amusement dancing over his features, but there was something almost desperate in the way he held himself. You're just a pawn, Kyle. You think you can change the rules of this game? In that moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability hiding behind Derek's bravado. The storm raging within Kyle had caught Derek off guard, revealing a chink in his confidence. I'm more than a pawn, Kyle replied, stepping forward, his stature radiating courage. I will not be dictated by fear or loyalty to a debt I never wanted. Every emotion that had been swirling within me found expression in that moment. Fear morphed into a quiet confidence. This battle was not just for Kyle, but for all of us. And we'll stand by you, I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. We'll fight this together, Mia added, together, we're stronger than any darkness you think you have power over. A ripple of shock passed through Derek, a flicker of unease tracing his features as he took an involuntary step back. The illusion of control began to crack under the weight of our united front. You're foolish, he spat, but the words lacked the venom they once held. Maybe, Kyle admitted, but at least we're not alone anymore. Not in this. Just then, the wail of sirens drew closer, the reality outside abruptly piercing our bubble. Time was beyond critical, but the storm had settled momentarily, our resolve momentarily grounding us in place. Derek recoiled, frustration boiling in his eyes as the sirens echoed like a warning. You may think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming. They'll come for you, for everyone you cherish, he howled, retreating into the background, the malevolence in his voice lingering like smoke. Let's get out of here. Alex urged again, pulling Kyle toward the alley's exit. I glanced back, uncertainty eating away at my newfound hope. Was this truly the end, or merely a pause in a battle that had been fought for too long? Our battles don't end here, Kyle said softly, as if answering my unspoken thoughts. Not ever, but we can face them together. The four of us moved as one, Alex, Kyle, Mia, and moving forward into the uncertain night. The shadows of the alley melted behind us, and as we turned the corner onto the street, the weight of the past felt different, livable, as if a tether had been severed and new possibilities emerged in its place. Why brother's been through hell, Kyle murmured quietly, but I can't let that dictate who I am any longer. I won't be defined by the debts I carry. Each of us has a past, Alex reminded, a strong hand resting on Kyle's shoulder. But it doesn't have to define our future. Together, we'll forge new paths. MIA's presence shone with unwavering light. We hold the power now. It's not about debts or who can own whom, it's about love, strength, and family. As we emerged into the street, the haunting wails of the sirens echoed behind us, a reminder of the storm that had just rocked our world. But now I felt different. A flicker of resilience ignited within me, bright and hopeful. For the first time, I believed that healing was possible, not only for Kyle but for all of us to escape the expectations shackled by our pasts, but that would be a journey we'd take together, learning from every scar etched on our hearts. With every step toward the future, I knew our arms would be open, ready to embrace the messiness of growth and love. And as dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the world, I met Kyle's gaze, his eyes filled with a deep well of gratitude. A silent understanding passed between us. Promised that whatever lay ahead, we would navigate the storm together, rewriting the narrative with every breath. In that moment, I realized we were no longer managing the weight of what was owed. We were stepping boldly into the light of our own story, where love and family meant reclaiming the strength to stand firm against whatever challenges might appear next. And as I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, I understood deeply this was not just about restitution. This was about freedom, the kind that spread its wings like the morning sun, reminding us we were finally free to soar. Together, we would rise no longer alone, but united, ready to forge our own path, come what may.